Praise the Lord, my beautiful blessed souls. Back with another word. We are bruised and not broken. We are here. I believe we left off in August 11th, I believe. So now I'm going to be doing August 12th, and we're going to be going into August 13th. And shout out to my grandson, because tomorrow's his birthday. He'll be one, my youngest. And right now, I am going to read Problems. We are in 2 Samuel now, which is, we just finished 1 Samuel. We did all the way up to chapter 31. Now we're in 2 Samuel chapter 1, and this is going to get really powerful because we're going to see a lot going on here. So August 12th says problems. How can I learn and grow from my problems? We grow the most when we have problems because that is often when our character is stretched. We have to develop patience, purity, kindness, and a host of other Christ-like character traits while dealing with problems. That's a tall order, but if we endure, we will come out stronger and better prepared when the next problem rolls along. God's response to this in 2 Corinthians 6, this is 3 through 8 and 10. We try to live in such a way that no one will be hindered from finding the Lord by the way that we act. Meaning how we live. We patiently endure troubles and hardships and calamities of every kind. We have proved ourselves by our purity, our understanding, our patience, our kindness, and our sincere love. And the power of the Holy Spirit, we have faithfully preached the truth. God's power has been worked in us. We serve God whether people honor us and or despise us, whether they slander us and or praise us. Our hearts ache, but we always have joy. We are poor, but we give spiritual riches to others. We own nothing and yet have everything. James 1:12, God blesses the people who patiently endure testing. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Now, remember, this is, we're going to look at this because David has been going through a lot. We go through these things ourselves in life. So when people see us being tested or things going on in our lives, they, tend to smirk or laugh. But as we see, God is using that for our good. Now, in August 13th, because we're going into the 13th, I don't know when this video is going to drop. Usually between the 12th and the 13th it'll drop. It depends on how long it takes YouTube to upload it. This one says helping others. How can I help others even in the midst of my problems or mine's and theirs? Well, when others are facing problems, you can genuinely love them with your actions, your emotions, your attitudes, your words, and presence. The comfort you have received from God in your times of trouble can be passed on to others in times of need, in their times of need. Now, God's response to this in 1 John 3:11, this is the message we have heard from the beginning. We should love one another. Philippians 4:14, you have done well to share with me in my present difficulties. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, all praise to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. He is the source of every mercy and the God who comforts us. He comforts us, He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. When others are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 and in Galatians 6:2. Share each other's troubles and problems, and in this way obey the law of Christ. So this is what, it says, and this is the problems one, and this will be for the 13th. So I want you to see that. So I read both of those, and we're going to see how this applies to this actual chapter. Now I'm going to read it. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from striking down the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell on the ground and paid homage. David said to him, where do you come from? And he said to him, I have escaped from the camp of Israel. And David said to him, how did it go? Tell me. And he answered, the people fled from the battle, and also many of the people have fallen and are dead. And Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead. Then David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" And the young man who told him said, "By chance I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen were close upon him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me." Wait, hold on. "And he called to me, and I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' And he said to me, 'Stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has seized me, and yet my life still lingers.' So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head and the armlet that was on his arm, and I have brought them here to you, my Lord." So then David took hold of his clothes and tore them, and so did all the men who were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. And David said to the young man who told him, "Where do you come from?" And he answered, "I am the son of a sojourner, an Amalekite." David said to him, "How is it that you are not afraid to put out your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Meaning, how was he not afraid to kill Saul? Then David called one of the young men and said, "Go execute him." And he struck him down so that he died. And David said to him, "Your blood be on your head, for your own mouth has testified against you, saying, 'I have killed the Lord's anointed,'" meaning because he said he killed Saul. We're going to look into this. We're going to break it down because, as we can see, a lot is going on. "And David lamented with the lamentation over Saul and Jonathan his son. And he said, 'It should be taught to the people of Judah. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher,' he said, 'Your glory, O Israel, is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen.'" This is something like, it looks like a poem. "Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you, no fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled, the shield of Saul, not anointed with oil, from the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty. The bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely in life and in death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you luxuriously in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished." So that's the end of 2 Samuel chapter 1. Now we're going to break it down, looking into it some more. So when the words were written, these two books we now call 1 and 2 Samuel, they were one combined text, meaning they were all together. Later translators separated them by chapter and verse. Divisions came even after and later. Though this passage is marked as the new book, the text continues uninterrupted from the last verse of 1 Samuel. So this is a continuation. So after years of evading King Saul, David and his men and their families finally found respite in the land of Achish, the Philistine king of Gath. And Achish trusted David so much that he brought David and his army to the combined Philistine battle against the Israelites. Fortunately, the other Philistine kings weren't so trusting. Achish sent David and his men home, and they arrived just in time to find their city burned and their families taken by the Amalekites. So while David's men was rescuing their wives and their children, the Philistines killed the sons, Saul's sons, and wounded Saul and took his own life. Okay, wounded Saul, and then Saul took his own life. So I'm trying to figure out if the guy, what he said was a lie, and if that's why they killed him, because he said he killed Saul, but in this is saying Saul killed, they tried to kill Saul, but he didn't die. He ended up killing himself. So there's kind of a contradiction. We need to look it up and find out. Now, an Amalekite who came from the Israelites' camp gives a different story. He says, yes, Philistines killed Saul's sons, but he killed the wounded King Saul at his request. As proof, he's bought Saul's crown and armlet. So, but he could have taken it off him after, so we don't know. The Amalekite has grossly misjudged David's feelings for Saul. So David's always respected Saul as God's anointed king, of course. He loved Jonathan as a friend, greater than a brother, instead of celebrating the fact that his enemy is dead. See, pay attention. And he can now take the throne. David has the man executed for striking the king. So the Amalekite story contradicts the narrative of Saul's death. It does. Critics often use this as a difference to claim that the Bible contains contradictions and mistakes. But the simple truth is that the Amalekite lied. Scripture accurately records his statement and the consequences which came by it. So they killed him because he lied. He said he killed the king, and he thought that he was coming there, I guess, to make himself look good. I don't know. And then, because he told them that, David killed him or had him killed. But that's because you're still not supposed to, touch the anointed. And so because he lied and said he did. So the second half of the chapter features a lament or elegy written by David. That was the poem. He commands it to be published and taught to all the people of Judah. The lament calls for Israel to join David in expressing both genuine sorrow for the loss of Saul and of Jonathan, as well as celebrating their lives. So both, he's not just going to completely condemn Saul. What he's doing is he's, acknowledging Saul for who he was, and God, he was God's anointed and called king before he was, and although he fallen, it's still the same. He still showed him the same respect. Why? Because we all have flaws. So now in the poem, David repeats the phrase, how the mighty have fallen, three separate times. He tells Israel not to mention Saul's death to the Philistines to give them reason to celebrate, and curses the mountains of Gilboa as the place where they died and where their bodies and shield lay neglected. That is because that is still a part. They are still Israelites. They are still, you see what I'm saying? So to have your enemies, basically join together and celebrate whatever is going on, calamities in your household with you and your family, that is not good. And to give them the ammunition for it is not good either, because a lot of times that's what happens. Don't let that go over your head. David celebrates their fierceness as warriors and the way that they were loved and respected by the people of Israel and by each other. He calls for the daughters of Israel to join in weeping for Saul, in part because his kingship provided the fine clothes and jewelry for them. Now, finally, David expresses his grief for Jonathan, a man whose love and commitment for him was more than that of a woman. Meaning, despite misuse by critics, the words do not imply that David and Jonathan's relationship was sexual. So it was not. They were intensely loyal and affirming of each other like brothers, but nothing indicates a romantic attraction, meaning they never, So with God's approval, David will return home to Judah. There, the elders will make him their king. David will thank the men who risked their lives to rescue the bodies of Saul and his 3 sons from the Philistines. Meanwhile, Abner, Saul's military commander and cousin, will install Saul's son, Ishbosheth, as king of the rest of Israel. So now David will fight Abner for 7 years before he can be king of all of Israel. So here goes this long, still lengthy, drawn out battle, yet still. So we talk about problems and helping others. This fits the bill. Now let's get into it. Why? Because although David has had his own immense amount of issues and problems, he's still out fighting and helping other people in whatever way, shape, form that he can. And a lot of times we take folks like this for granted. And as you can see, anytime David had something going on, the moment something didn't go well for these people, they turned on him, just like they did with Moses and all the other rest. Now, in the close of the foregoing book, with which it is connected as a continuation of the same history, we had Saul's exit. He went down slain to the pit. Though he was the terror of the mighty in the land of the living, we are now to look towards the rising sun and to inquire where David is and what he is doing. In this chapter, we have tidings brought to him by Ziklag, the death of Saul and Jonathan, by Amalekite, who undertook to give him particular narrative, right? So David's sorrowful reception of these tidings, and then the justice done upon the messenger, who boasted that he helped to kill Saul to dispatch himself. Now, an elegy with David, he penned upon this occasion, and meaning he wrote it out. And in all of David's breast appears very happily, free from the sparks of both revenge and ambition. And he observes a very suitable demeanor. Why? Because it's not that you have to kill other people in order to get to where you want to be and need to be in life. You don't have to, destroy others and this is what this is about. This is why God chooses certain people. Because of their heart posture, because of their character, because you may not want to kill your enemies, you may not want to hurt them. You just want them to leave you alone and going about their business and stop, messing with you. It's not that you have necessarily a problem with them, as we could see with this situation with David. But people are going to do what they're going to do. So when we look at this, it's a spirit, it's people, it's the spirit within them. It's whatever in them that is being used, because the spirit uses whatever anger, bitterness, hatred. Once that's in there, they can come in and use that, to their advantage. So 2 Samuel 1 is one of the most emotionally layered, spiritually complex, psychologically revealing chapters in David's entire journey. It is a moment where David's waiting ends, Saul's era closes, and grief becomes the bridge into destiny. This chapter is not just history, it is transition, it is closure, it is mourning, it is identity, it is leadership and emotional maturity. It is all happening at once. So below, we're just going to break it down and look at all of the key takeaways. Now, David receives news that Saul and Jonathan are dead. Instead of celebrating, see, this is one thing about him. He never celebrated his enemy's downfall. David grieves. Why? Because he honors them, and then he has time to process it, proving that he is ready to be king. This chapter teaches that your response to the end of a painful season determines your readiness for the next one. Remember, we're still called to love our enemies and to pray for them and, to do well with them. So now, chapter overview, 2 Samuel chapter 1, Okay. This is the emotional story between David's suffering and David's elevation. So we're going to look at it. A man from Saul camp. Okay, he lies. David executes him. David mourns. David writes a song of the bow. That's what it's called, honoring them. And David transitioned emotionally into kingship. So spiritually, it's the end of one era and the beginning of another. Saul's death is divine closure. God has removed the barrier. So whatever blockages you have in your life, this is what it will look like. He's ended the conflict. He's fulfilled the prophecy. He's cleared the path and shifted the kingdom. So now the path will be cleared for David to take the throne. David's response proves spiritual maturity. He does not rejoice. He does not boast. He does not celebrate. He does not gloat. What he does is he grieves. This is spiritual intelligence, because at any time we could be in the right and in the wrong on any situation. And we will want the same response. We will want mercy. We will want this. We want that. So this is where that comes in. It's not that God is not going to say that we're not going to have to take responsibility and accountability for our actions. That is not excused. But there will still be grace and mercy there for you as far as how it is carried out. Mentally, the layered is hope deferred turning into hope fulfilled. David's long waiting ends. Years of running, hiding, trauma, betrayal, instability, and deferred hope. And this is what this will look like, a shift in your own life when things are changing. Now, he shifts into clarity, direction, fulfillment, and elevation. Mental maturity shows in David's restraint. He does not rush into kingship. He processes the moment. This is mental discipline. Yes, because when things are happening in your life, whether they're good or bad, you have to take time to process it, whatever it is. And a lot of times we don't, but we need to. Emotional layer, grief, loss, and complex feelings. David grieves Jonathan. Jonathan was his best friend, his covenantal brother, his protector, and his spiritual ally. David's grief is deep and it is pure. Why? Because there's nothing like having a friend that is not only there like a brother, protector, but spiritually in tune with, scripture, with the word, able to pray for you. There's nothing like having people in your life like that, because it makes a big difference. When you have people on that end, then on the opposite end, it kind of puts a strain on the relationship. This is why in certain areas, this is why, as you growing and moving forward, things will change, people will change, they will be moved in and out of your life. This is why. David grieves Saul. Saul tried to kill him, yet David still grieves him. Why? Because this shows emotional maturity, forgiveness, compassion, leadership, integrity. David grieves Israel's loss as well. He feels the weight of national tragedy because they all have lost, not just one person. We think about all these small battles, but yet getting there, meaning the whole war. Now, this whole situation became from a small thing to, so much piled up stuff that is completely economically they're suffering. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because when the cities are burned down, this is what happens. Livestock is destroyed, all of these type of things. So now you have to build back. So it's not just a one-layered thing. He's grieving for Israel because of all the loss, and he's also grieving the loss of Saul and Jonathan. Why? At one point he was, close to them. He was, in the palace with them. So you got to think about it. These are like people that you've had, that, you do grieve it, whether it's a relationship, a job, people, whatever it is, people, places, and things, you will grieve them. It is considered a loss. When you were close, when you had that tie or bond to it. Physical layers, fatigue and release. David has been physically exhausted for years, right? And this moment is a release. It is relief. It is transition. It is closure. His body can finally rest, because a lot of times when you're going through all this, your body, your mind, it cannot rest. I know this for myself when you go through so much all of the time. And so you don't want to be in a fight or flight state of your life, all of your life. And this is what that looks like. To finally come out of that state. And that's a state of peace. And a lot of times when people get that, they want to keep and maintain that, because it's hard to get it and it's hard to keep it. Why? Because you don't want to go back to dealing with the same stuff. Why? Because now you're over here and you can see things clearly and different now. If you was going through a whole bunch of drama here and a whole bunch of dysfunction there and a whole bunch of back and forth and conflict, and you don't want to keep doing that. Not on a long-term basis type situation. No, you just don't. It's a lot of unnecessary stress. It's a lot of unnecessary strain on your body, on your mental, emotional, your physical, your financial, and your spiritual. It does do a toll on you. So, financial layer, the economic shift. Saul's death means new leadership, new economic structure. Remember, they got to rebuild everything. New military strategy, new national stability. David's future kingdom economy begins here. So it's not just about grieving one thing. As we said, he's grieving all of these things simultaneously. It is a lot to bear. Naturally and geographical layers, Ziklag to Judah, David is still in Ziklag. This is the place of recovery, and sometimes it takes time when you're in a place of recovery, depending on how much you've gone through. You may have to be there a while. Why? Because you got to get out all of that stuff, that residue, all of that hurt, that pain. You got to let God do the surgery on you. You got to repair your heart, repair your mind, repair all this stuff, because you've gone through so much for so long, and it may take some time. So this chapter prepares him to move to Hebron, where he will be crowned king. Environmental shifts with destiny, because now he's taking on more responsibility. Remember, he ain't even got to the throne yet, and he's gone through all of this stuff. So imagine getting to the throne and already dealing with this. He has to deal with this stuff before he gets there. Don't need no extra added stuff, because he got more stuff that's going to be coming his way. So now this is why this is so important, especially when you're transitioning and leaving other things behind and moving forward, because whatever's coming and whatever you got to deal with now, you're going to need your attention for that. Now, cultural layer, honoring the fallen. David writes a national lament, honoring Saul, honoring Jonathan, honoring Israel's warriors. This shapes Israel culture of remembrance. Why? These families died, whether it was men, women, children, livestock. This is loss. It is devastation for them all. So it's not just David who's mourning. It is not just him who's recovering mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually. All of them are. Now, socially, and when you're a leader, it's more work on you. It's like, this is where you got your own issues and problems, but yet you have to help everyone else with theirs at the same time. While carrying your own load, it gets to be a lot. And if you don't have someone in your corner, such as Jonathan, that can become a situation. Because God always tries to give us somebody. He's there. But it's nice to have someone there sometimes in this, spiritual, natural body. Social layer, restoring, trust. David's grief shows humility, honor, integrity. This wins the hearts of the people. Social trust has to be restored. So this is a building back. Why? Because remember, they were divided. You had Saul after David, saying that he was trying to kill him. And then David not trying to kill him, but trying to avoid them getting into it. So the people are just in a twisted situation right now. And we can see this with our own family members when people take sides, when people get in the middle, when things get thrown back and forth, whether it's true or not on either end. And, folks is in the middle and they're going back and forth, and whether they know what they're doing or not, whether they know who's right or who's not, but they have so much to say and so much to do, and they just in it and they don't know half of what really is going on. This becomes a problem because they make small things bigger. We can see these things happening in our own lives in every aspect. Family layer, loss and legacy. See, Jonathan's death affects his son, Mephibosheth, his lineage, his inheritance. David later honors Jonathan's family, proving covenant loyalty. Why? Because he's still a part of the body. So because of that, this is what this is. And, we have issues with our family. We have issues with our friends. But how we handle it, is going to make the difference. It really is. I always ask God to help me with whatever, with my heart, with my mind, because I don't want to be, out of pocket. I don't want to bring curses upon myself. I don't want to be hating people. I don't want to be after people. I don't want to be, all of this stuff, because I know that if I do, then God's going to handle me. He's going to deal with me. And he will show me where things I haven't forgiven, or I thought I forgave, or I thought it was over and it still hurts, and it will come up in other areas. So we got to pay attention to that, triggers, whatever. Governmental layers, transition of power. Big thing whenever there's a transference of power. This is whether it's at your job, this is, in the government, mayors, states, officials, whatever. When they do new laws and new, what they call them, in government, when they passing new bills and laws. Whenever stuff new is going on, there's always some type of transition of power. Saul's death creates a political vacuum. Just sucking up, right? National instability, the need for new leadership, and David's response proves he's ready to govern. So having people there who are ready to govern, who are ready to do what needs to be done, because it's not easy. Heavy is the head to wear the crown to be in these type of positions. People think it's so easy. It is not. Past, present, and future. Past, David's suffering era is ending. Present, David grieves. This is his grieving and healing deliverance process. Why? Because he has to go through this. His future, David rises. He will rise into kingship. So, but we can't skip the present, which is the grieving and the healing. We have to go through that. And a lot of times when we go through stuff, we skip that part. And that becomes a hindrance to us. We just throw it to the side and move forward. That's not good. We ignore it. We can't do that. We have to face it. We have to deal with it. And it's going to be in your own time, of course. Impatient, negative attitudes, anger, bitterness, fatigue. Saul's impatience, of course, led to his death. We talked about that before. David's patience was elevation. So, Saul's was anger, bitterness, restlessness, paranoia, rebellion, and spiritual drift. David's patience was positive. It was waiting, his waiting produced humility, emotional discipline, spiritual strength, leadership, maturity. And his positive attitude to waiting is what saves him. Because if you get the chance to do your so-called whoever's in, would you take it? Would you do it? Now, it's just, and how would you handle that? Now, thinking God hates us and or punishing us, because remember we talked about this before. Saul believed God abandoned him, God hated him, God was punishing him. This belief came from guilt, fear, disobedience, and spiritual distance. David never believed God hated him, even in suffering. This is why David survived his waiting season. Long waiting, the cost and the benefit. Cost of long waiting, of course, is fatigue, discouragement, trauma, emotional exhaustion, confusion, loneliness, deferred hope. Benefit of long waiting was maturity, wisdom, emotional intelligence, spiritual depth, leadership, strength, discernment, stability, and humility. Waiting shapes kings. Pros and cons of God's promises. The pros is destiny, protection, guidance, elevation, fulfillment, and purpose. The cons, meaning on the human side, long waiting, emotional pressure, spiritual testing, character development, pruning, which is the cutting away, isolation, and warfare. Promises are perfect, but the process is painful. Problems and solutions in 2 Samuel chapter 1. Problem is Saul's death creates national instability. The solution is David's grief will stabilize the people. They have to all grieve it out. Problem is Jonathan's death creates emotional collapse. The solution is David honors him through the lamenting, meaning the crying, Problem, a lion tries to manipulate David. The solution to that was David executes him, establishing justice. The problem here is transition is heavy. The solution is David process grief before stepping into leadership. You have to. The problem is trauma resurfaces. Exactly. Solution is David channels emotion into worship and poetry. That's how he did it. Now, everybody would be different for that. We have to find out our way of how to cope and deal with things, because we will be triggered and things will come up that we have dealt with. That's the residue. That's, sometime. The problem, leadership vacuum, I find with me, praise and worship sometimes helps me, or listening to it helps, soothe. Problem, leadership vacuum. Solution is David's maturity fills it. Now, personal application, we're going to look at these for our lives. Our soul season is ending, so instability, fear, chaos, and pressure, it will be closing out. This will be looking like it's going to be wrapping up that season. So our Jonathan season is shifting. Some relationships were covenant, but their seasons have changed. So this may mean at times we will be moving around. People will be changing. They won't be number one in your life. They'll be put in the back, or they'll be completely cut out. So people that weren't there might be number one now, in case in point, your besties may change, different things, of that nature. So we have to, pay attention to that. I find myself dealing with that as well. We are grieving correctly like David. Our grief is not weakness, it is transition. So we have to pay attention to that. We are being prepared for elevation. Our emotional maturity is proving our readiness. So preparing for the next step, meaning this is how we do that. Because when you're waiting, you're not just waiting, you're preparing yourself for whatever door God is going to open so you can walk through it and maintain it and handle it. A lot of these times stuff, come and it's once in a lifetime. And if you don't take it, you're going to find yourself in these cycles where you downtrodden. Why? Because you wouldn't have gotten that moment that God has given you. And I believe we went through the different Kairos seasons or whatever seasons that God gives us. And, I talked about that in another video about how we need to step into it, how we need to pay attention to what it looks like, when it's that time, so that we will be prepared to step in and walk through and get and maintain whatever it is God, whatever blessings God has given us. Because getting it, maintaining it is two different things. First of all, you got to get it. You got to walk through the door. That's number one. You got to know that this is the door, know which one to take, and know that it's the one for you. But you only know that through alignment. So talked about that in videos in the past. And then moving forward, being able to walk through the door and maintain the season that God has given us, whatever it is. So you're stepping into Hebron season, the season of being crowned in private or before public elevation. So this is when your waiting is about to turn into fulfillment. This is after you've been waiting all the time. And now it's time for you to step into whatever God has for you. Now, God is not punishing you. You are being shaped and not destroyed. This is what we must remember. And that our fatigue is valid, but it is ending. So relief is coming soon. This is when we get kind of tired at the end of these battles, when we're just like hanging on by a string. So our promise is alive. Our relocation, our stability, our peace, our calling, our platform, our destiny, whatever it is, they're delayed, but they're not denied. And that is whatever that looks like. Some people may be moving into different positions, career-wise, business-wise, new cities, new towns, whatever. Final summary, 2 Samuel chapter 1 is the chapter of grief, closure. We will get closure, transition, maturity, emotional intelligence, spiritual alignment, leadership readiness, destiny shift. Saul's fall becomes David's rise. Our past collapse, and it becomes our future elevation. So we have to pay attention and look at these things and know what one is, one era of a season of our lives is closing and a new one is opening so that we can move forward. Now, wanted to talk about, how to process our own stuff and still be able to, help others, and how that looks and how to be able to deal with it. So we want to be learning and growing from our own problems and not avoiding them, but also be able to help others, because there's going to be times when we're going to have to do this while we're still in our own struggle, and how to handle that and what that looks like. So This will be emotional maturity, leadership development, and spiritual intelligence. This is the moment where David shows that problems don't just shape you, they prepare you to shape others as well. He becomes king because of how he handled pain, not because how he avoided it. So a lot of times we want to avoid these things. I get it. It's not what we want. And some things God is not going to remove. Some things we're going to have to be delivered through them, not from them. Don't get that over your head. So because of that, we have to go through the things that we don't like or we don't want to. But whatever it is God is trying to get in and or out of us, this is where it's going to be. So this is the moment where David shows the problems. Okay, so he becomes a king because of how he handled the pain. So below, we're going to discuss it, how we full breakdown, integrating, learning from your problems, growing through the pain, not avoiding difficulty, helping others while hurting. This is expansion, leadership development, emotional maturity, spiritual intelligence, and destiny formation. All of these we discussed basically inside of 2 Samuel chapter 1. David's response to Saul and Jonathan's death shows that true leaders grows through their problems not around them, and they help others even while they're grieving, because as we see, David still had to press on, fight battles, do all kind of things, even though he had all of this from Saul and everything else going on. So this chapter teaches us how our pain becomes our preparation. Our preparation becomes someone else's survival manual, because we let them see and know how to make it and how to get through, it from your own stuff, letting them know. So this is what this is all about. Spiritual layer. Problems become training grounds. David doesn't avoid the problem. He faces it. He receives devastating news. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't hide from it. He doesn't numb it. So he engages the pain. Whether he likes it or not, he accepts it. Spiritual growth happens through problems, not avoidance. David learns compassion, forgiveness, humility, honor, reverence, and obedience. His spiritual maturity comes from walking through the pain and not escaping it. Mental layer. Problems build mental strength. David processes the problems instead of running from them. He thinks clearly, judges wisely, he responds calmly, he makes decisions carefully, and the problems sharpen his mind. Mentally, the growth comes from facing difficulty. David's mind becomes disciplined, stable, strategic, and wise. This is why he can govern a nation. Emotionally, he's growing through his grief. David grieves deeply but productively. He tears his clothes, he weeps, he mourns, he laments. He writes a national song, and he doesn't avoid his emotions. He channels them. He doesn't just, sit there and be like, oh, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to dull my pain, smoke it away, drink it away, party it away, sex it away, work it away, right? Emotional growth comes from processing pain. David learns emotional regulation, empathy, compassion, resilience. His emotional maturity becomes his leadership strength. Those are his abilities. This is where God is putting all of these abilities. When they ask you about your experience, with jobs, and you go in and you tell them what you've done, this is what this is about. It's not just about what you learn, it's how you apply it. How can you apply it? Do you know when and where to apply it? Physical layer. Problems build endurance. David has been running, fighting, hiding, and surviving. His body has been trained by hardship. Physical endurance comes from lived struggle. He is strong because he has suffered, and he has suffered much. And this is why we see a lot of people who go through a lot tend to be a little bit more wise, a little bit more mature at times, because of them having to process so much, pain, or so much issue, so much problems. These are the people most people just throw off as nothings, nobodies, whatever. But in order to live their life and to still be here and still be sane, you got to be able to process some stuff. You're not just some dummies just sitting around here. Folks may think that of you, but that's not the case. They sit down and actually have a conversation with you, they might be surprised. But let people think what they want to think, because you're not here to please them, no way. It's just let them think whatever they want to think. Financial layer. Problems teach stewardship. David's years of instability taught him how to manage resources. Exactly. This is the one thing I'm good at too. How to share his spoils, how to support others, how to build economic stability. Problems taught him stewardship. Why? Because when you are on the run, when you don't have much, it teaches you how to survive off of so little, and how to, Be very, what they call it, crafty and resourceful with your finances and how to make things work and last. You would be surprised. I remember when I used to work in the prison, how they used to, make stuff out of nothing. You'd be like, well, dag, but when you're in there, this is what you have to do to survive. You'll figure it out. Comfort, they say, builds laziness. When you're going through stuff, it builds character, it builds strength, it builds wisdom. You're learning, you're expanding. Natural environmental layers, problems prepared for new environments. David's environment has been in caves. See, wildernesses, foreign lands, battlefields, Ziklag. These environments shaped him. When you've been homeless a lot, when you've been unstable, when you've been from state to state, when you've done certain things, when you've been through and lived through certain situations. Yes, survival is something you do know how to do very well. People wonder, oh, how did they just build themselves back? Because that's all you know how to do. A lot of times, people, don't understand that if you've never really lived a cushiony so-called life. You have had to fight for your own, fight for yourself, be out there in the trenches all the time. It teaches you how to survive off of really a whole lot of nothing. To make, what little you have a lot. People think you have a lot. It's not that you have a lot. You know how to make what you have work. And it's God giving you that ability. And once you give what little you have to him, he expands it. And this is what this is. Growth happens in uncomfortable places. This is what this is. David's ready for Hebron because he survived Ziklag, meaning all the other stuff. Now, this could be true for some and not for all, because some people can't. They don't know how to do that. They will fall apart. So this can be not just for all, but for some, it can be, a beautiful situation. For some, it may not, it depends on the person. And then when it comes to God and him being in their lives, showing them which way, and him, providing for them, protecting for them, even in their hard times, keeping their minds, right, keeping them strengthened, in all of these seasons of lack, of famine, of hardship, whether people are there or not, whether people are supportive or not. This is what this looks like when people are like, oh, how did you survive? If it wasn't for the Lord, honey, I would not have made it. My mind, my emotions, my physical, none of it, I would not have been able to survive, because a lot of the things that I have gone through and have gone through multiple would have taken my mind. It would have taken me out of here. Like I said, I even myself tried to commit suicide myself and all these other things. And this is how this happens at times when you're going through so much and you don't really know much, or you trying to figure it out, when you're not living necessarily for the Lord, but you have some kind of reference, but you don't know for yourself. This is what this looks like. And then we still don't have all the answers. We have to wait for God to give them to us. So, culture later, problems teach honor. David honors Saul. He's a man who tried to kill him, but this shows him cultural intelligence, respect, maturity, leadership ethics. Problems taught David how to honor even when hurt. And this is what a lot of us do not understand: to be angry, to be upset with folks, but to still be able to honor them and keep the person intact, because this is something that is important, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, family, whoever it is. Being able to keep them intact, is something that we still need to be learning, because sometimes we do and we don't do that. This is what this is. Now, David was still able to honor Saul. He honored the position Saul had. He still was before him. He was in a position above him, before him. He was already king before David came onto the scene. He was already anointed by God. So no matter what Saul did or did not do, he still saw that, as far as God allowed him to still see that is still his child too, and he still anointed him, and he still allowed him to be king in that position regardless, you see what I'm saying, of how he was operating. So we have to pay attention to this, and he still honored him and honored the position he had regardless. And sometimes we do not do that, and it's not good. It's really not. This is culture intelligence, because he knew that if by not honoring Saul and killing Saul, it would fall back on him. He knew that. Why? Because that's what the culture teaches them. That's what them worshiping the Lord taught them, that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So he couldn't kill Saul. Only way he could have did that is if God told him to. But other than that, if God didn't tell him to do it, he couldn't do it. He knew he couldn't do it. respect. He still respected it. He was still mature about the situation. He held back. He stood back. A lot of times people think when you don't do stuff that it's about, you being weak or meek. No, it's not that, because some people, you don't even know to what degree or what length that they might actually go off on you. The restraint that they're showing, you don't know what that looks like in their life, especially if you just met them. That could be looking like them just going all off on you in a way that you would never, think of. So we have to pay attention to that. Maturity and emotional. Being able to, sit in these seats where stuff is going on and you still be able to deal with it. Because I'm telling you, a lot, I have grown a lot. I used to be a firework. But honey, God has sat me down and shown me some things, and I'm not as crazy as I used to be, which I'm thanking God for. Leadership ethics, problems taught David how to honor even when hurt, because we have to know how to deal with these difficult situations and difficult people, places, and things at whatever times. And dealing it the old hood way, or the gangster way, whatever you want to call it, is not always the way. Sometimes you can make things a whole lot worse by doing it that way. And you can miss your blessing. You can, do certain things. You put on certain things on your own self by handling it in certain ways as well. So I am learning myself. But socially, helping others while hurting. David helps Israel while grieving. He writes his national lament. He confronts the people, comforts the people, and he honors their fallen king. He stabilizes their emotions. He is hurting, they're hurting, but he still helps. And this is what this looks like. True leaders help others even in their own pain. And I tell people this, and you better pay attention to them, because people can have their whole world going upside down and they're still there trying to help you with whatever it is they're trying to help you with. Regardless if you acknowledge it, you help them, you see them, or you do anything for them or not. So please pay attention, because people like this, they don't come a dime a dozen. I promise you, most people don't care about nothing you got going on. As long as you're there good enough to help them with whatever they got going on, they don't care. You can be dying, you could be homeless, broke, poor, struggling with nothing. As long as you can run and jump for them whenever they need you to, they are fine with that. They don't care if after you leave them, you go and drop dead or you get put out. They don't care if you have nothing. They don't care. As long as you are there when they need you to do what they want you to do, that's all they care about. So please understand, when people are helping you throughout their own stuff, that is a blessing. And that is a person that, God looks highly at. Why? Because a lot of people don't do that. So David's pain becomes Israel's healing. Now, family-led problems teach covenant loyalty. David honors Jonathan's memory. Later, he helps Jonathan's son, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. Problems taught David loyalty, covenant, and generational responsibility. And this is what this looks like. Because although we're not together, although we're not this, although we're not that, I don't wish you no harm. I don't wish you no ill will. I just want you over there and I'll be over here and we just live our lives. That's it. You see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be a burden or, come and disrupt and destroy you in your life. And I want the same for you when it comes to me and mine. You see what I'm saying? And this is what people got to understand and get in their head. Governmental layers, problems prepared to lead. David's problems taught him justice, mercy, discernment, decision-making, crisis management. This chapter proved he is ready to govern. Past, present, and future, growth. Grow through the problems. His past, David's problems shape him. His present, David processes grief and helps others. His future, David rises into kingship. When you process it and you understand that you're going through stuff, and a lot of times the stuff you go through, you know what it feels like. So you want to help other people not to go through it. So you want to be there. And this is what that looks like. Impatience, negative attitudes, anger, bitterness, and fatigue. Saul avoided the problems. This is where his collapse went. Saul avoided responsibility. He avoided repentance. He avoided correction. He avoided emotional processing. This avoidance created impatience, anger, bitterness, paranoia, and collapse. So that's what that will look like in the Saul's case. David faced his problems. This is elevation. David confronted his pain. He processed his grief. He accepted reality. He honored others. He helped the nation. He facing his problems created maturity, stability, wisdom, leadership, and destiny. So this is what that will look like. Now, problems and solutions. The problem Saul's death created was national trauma. David writes in that. I did that part. So for us, problems are shaping our leadership. They're not destroying us. It's just we got to look at it as we're being developed. We are learning through the pain and not avoiding it. Our emotional processing is for maturity, not for weakness. It's also to help others later on down the line. You see what I'm saying? We're helping others even while hurting. The spiritual is compassion. They came from your own battles, and this is why when we look at our lives, usually this is where you have issues. Whatever problems you see in this world, usually if things bother you, that's kind of stuff you go through. Usually that's your purpose assignment. You have to get with God and find out why these things. This is where you're going to be expertise at. Your problems are preparing you for your next season. Just like David, your Hebron season is coming. You're becoming the kind of leader who can carry destiny, not because life is easy, but because you have to grow through these hardships. Your pain is becoming someone else's healing. This is what that's going to look like. Your story will help save others. This is why your testimony, your power of your testimony, you're talking about whatever it is you went through and how you processed it and how you got through it and how showing them how God helped you throughout it. And this is what this is all about. How God helped you throughout it. He kept you. He helped you. He healed you in these different areas. This is what this looks like. And so you sit and you tell other people so that they can learn and they can put it apart in their lives wherever they see fit, wherever they need it. And this is where that goes. So these are the soul seeds being sown. One plant, one water, God gives the increase. Our long waiting is producing deep maturity. You're becoming stable, wise, emotionally intelligent, and spiritually strong. This is what's happening throughout this process. God is not punishing you. He's preparing you. Your problems are not signs of rejection. They are signs of preparation. Final summary of 2 Samuel chapter 1. It is the chapter of learning through your problems, growing through your pain, helping others while hurting, emotional maturity, spiritual intelligence, leadership development, and destiny preparation. Remember, we're not going to avoid problems. We're going to go at them. This is like avoiding battles. We don't avoid them unless we have to, unless God tell us, these are not ours or whatever. But we're supposed to be moving forward. We're not going to be going backwards, and we only stand still if God tells us that that's what he wants us to do. And I tell people that I don't go backwards. I don't stand still for nobody unless it's God. The only motion will be forward moving for me. What was that? Oh, I heard something. Okay. David becomes king because of how he handled problems, not because he avoided them. Our stories may mirror David's, meaning our lives. Our problems may be shaping our purpose. Our pain may be becoming our power. Our growth is becoming someone else's healing. We are stepping into our Hebron seasons. This is what this will look like. So I want to end this with this. As we look, like I said, he was helping others. He was, he honored them no matter what. He grieved them. He prayed for them. He did all of these things in spite of. And this can be anybody, because I know I've had to do this myself, especially when it's people close to you. You care about them. You love them. At one point, you have rapport, relationship, whatever. This is what this was look like. Even for those who are distant, you still, God teaches us we still have to love, pray, and be there for even our enemies. And that's because at times, we don't know how it's going to flip. We don't know how God will use the story in the end. And sometimes the same measure of mercy or grace or whatever you give, it'll be the same one you'll be shown. So if you sending death stuff and you sending all these wicked things and you're doing all these evil wicked things, a lot of times you'll find your own self in those traps and snares, because just like Haman, when he thought he was setting up Mordecai, he thought he was getting rid of Mordecai. But he made this contraption, but he ended up finding himself in his own device. Now just imagine if he hadn't built that device, that he wouldn't have left. He wouldn't have died on it. Because whatever it was he was using was with the way that they use on him. So we got to think about it. Would you want it if it was you? Whatever you got going on, would you want somebody to do it to you? Would you like it? Would you want? This is what we got to think about. Because this is what it means to love one another, to, love the Lord our God first, and then love one another, and then treat each other like we would treat ourselves. This is what this looks like. So we got to pay attention. And this is why, the words in the Bible are true. People say what they want to say, but they are. And they make a lot of sense when you look at them and you apply them in our lives and you see what's going on in the world, naturally and spiritually. You can see both going together and how what God is saying to us, it actually makes so much sense. We wouldn't have a lot of stuff going on if we were practicing these things. So with that being said, Let's start practicing. Let's not just be listening and hearers of the word. We got to be doers of the word. In whatever form and fashion God has put you in to do that. And we will move on, continue on. This was a power-packed, full of nuggets, chapter. I hope it was a blessing to you guys. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Oh, yes, I got a bunch of blessings too. My grandson's going to be one tomorrow, my youngest one. And my boys, they've got such stuff going on, so I'm so proud of them. My older two sons, my oldest one and my middle one, they got some stuff going on that was good. I'm not really going to share all of it, but I know my middle son, his case was dismissed, and my oldest son, he got some good stuff going on with him. But it's a blessing because although your children are grown, you still want what's best for them no matter what. And that is your goal as a parent. You can't make them, you can't force them, but and I think I ended that other one. I was saying it was good and bad, and I didn't mention that part because it was getting so late and I had to get ready for work and all some stuff. So with that being said, and I believe we're going to do something for Anthony. I think they're going to do something at the job. We're going to have a balloon release for him. And kind of, because I miss my boy the last 2 nights. It's been weird that he's not there. It's just been so hurt. I'm like, Dad, he's not coming downstairs. He's gone. But, yeah, so like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Bruised and Not Broken. I think my Cash App link is in my bio. And I was just hoping that this is a blessing for you all. But Bruised and Not Broken. Love you guys. Be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.